You guys, I did it. I found an SNES Classic. See, I was originally planning a list of my top 10 favorite SNES games as a sort of consolation for not being able to get my hands on an SNES Classic to review. But then, on a whim, I decided to check a Target that I was driving by, and lo and behold, they had just had a shipment come in and had one system left. I'm not saying it was fate, but I'm not saying it was fate either. So without further ado, let's jump right into this review. In the box, you will get the incredibly surprisingly tiny SNES control deck. You'll get 2 controllers, an HDMI cable, a micro USB adapter, and a power brick. So you have everything in the box, you just need to plug it in and you are set to go. The system includes 21 games, and I gotta say, if I was trying to compile a list of a sampler of what the SNES had to offer, it would look pretty darn similar to this list. It's got something for everybody. You're into platformers, well, you've got Super Mario Bros. And Yoshi's Island. You into RPGs, you've got Secret of Mana, Final Fantasy 6, or 3. We're gonna go with 6 because that's the proper name. You've got Earthbound, you've got Super Mario RPG. If you're into shoot-em-ups, you've got Contra. If you're into action games, you've got Mega Man X, you've got Super Metroid, you've got Star Fox. Not to mention the fact that you have the greatest Legend of Zelda game ever made. Well, before 2002, at least. That's not controversial, right? Everybody agrees that Wind Waker is the greatest Zelda. The Zelda fanbase is united on this, correct? Oh, like a lamb to the slaughter, I go to the comments section. The only changes I would make, honestly, is to get rid of Star Fox 2. A little bit of background story here. Star Fox 2 was not actually released, and to be honest, it's not that great, and I'm not a fan. I honestly would have booted that and put in UN Squadron. Also, unfortunately for you RPG fans, Chrono Trigger is not included on the system, which was really disappointing. Still, you are getting a pretty darn good value. A lot of good games. Just like the NES Classic, you have the ability to change the display. You can play the games in a 4:3 ratio, you can play it in what's called pixel perfect mode, and then you can also play it in the 4:3 ratio with a CRT filter. And I gotta be honest, maybe nostalgia's blinding me here, but I actually prefer the games in the CRT filter because, well, I don't know, they just look softer, and they look more like how I remember them. Again, it's probably completely nostalgia blinding me here. The games look absolutely beautiful in the 4:3 ratio. The pixel perfect mode, I gotta be honest, it's a little bit too sharp for my tastes, but some people are absolutely gonna love that. You also have borders that you can put around the games. My favorite one is the one that looks like an old CRT television, again because of the nostalgia, but it also has plenty of other backgrounds. Additionally, you can use suspend points in the games. You can use up to 4 on each game. I've actually come around to suspend points and save states. It's a nice compromise for modern gamers when you only have 15-20 minutes to play a game and you can't wait until you get to the next save station in a game like Super Metroid. Now, for all of the positive, and believe me, I am mostly positive about this system, there are a few things that, well, I'm not a big fan of. The rewind feature, I don't particularly like that or think it's necessary, but the system is just very clunky. Another problem is the controller cords. We live in an era where we have the wonders of wireless controllers, and we also live in an era where big screens are a pretty common thing in living rooms. So unfortunately, the 4.5-foot long cords attached to the controller just don't cut it. They're better than the cords were on the NES Classic, but they're still nowhere near long enough. If you buy an SNES Classic, I would recommend going on Amazon and getting yourself a cord extension. You can get them pretty cheap. The other thing too, when you want to get back to the home screen, you have to use the reset button. It's the same as with the NES Classic. I get it, it's part of the shtick, it's part of the fun of the whole system, but it's kind of annoying having to get up when you want to switch a game or use a save state, or if I was going to, use the rewind feature. But other than that, it's a fantastic system. I absolutely do think that it's worth its price tag, especially since you're given 2 controllers, so you can actually play Street Fighter or Mario Kart with someone else. let me give it a final score. And I've decided to forego my 1 to 10 scale. I'm gonna go with a scale that I hope is a little bit more useful and gives you a little bit more of an idea of how I feel about it. It's a scale that goes from must-have to forget it, and in between you have it worth it, take it or leave it, or not worth it at all. And I rate the SNES Classic as absolutely worth it. It's a lot of nostalgic fun. A lot of people who played the SNES, we're adults now, we have our own children. It's a really great way to sort of introduce them to an aspect of your childhood. It's a lot of fun. Granted, there are cheaper alternatives if you want to emulate SNES games.
As long as you own the SNES games.
But I do think it's worth it to get it from Nintendo, to get that full experience. It's worth it with its suggested price of $80. Paying over $200 for it from a scalper on eBay, it's not worth it. Don't do it. Someone who actually works at Nintendo, he let me know the first wave of SNES Classics that they sent out was more than the entire production run of the NES Classic, and they're still producing them. I know there's a shortage right now. That's the case whenever a new console comes out. Don't pay scalpers. Wait for it to come to a store. Be patient. I know it's hard. And it's probably really annoying coming from someone that actually found an SNES Classic. Thanks for watching, guys. Are you hoping to get an SNES Classic? Were you lucky enough to nab one? Also, don't worry, I'm still coming out with my list of top 10 SNES games. I'm also working on a sequel to 5 websites as they appeared in the 90s, so look for that in the upcoming weeks, kind of making up for the month that I took off.
Sorry about that.
Thanks for supporting the channel.